Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. It's news that's nightly about the Redskins. Welcome to the Redskins Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louis T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, the Redskins prepare to take on the Chicago Bears, on Monday Night Football at home in a massive showdown for the Redskins. And really, if you're the Bears, this is a big game for you as well. You can't afford to fall to 1-2 on the season, having already lost to the Packers, who have gotten off to a 3-0 start. And oh, by the way, the Packers don't play another road game until December. So if you're the Bears, you need to keep pace. And really, the Vikings are right there as well, having only lost to the Packers as well. And so they're 2-1. The Packers are 3-0. And the Lions, don't forget about the Lions. No one was giving them a shot except Lions fans before the season started. Oh, by the way, they're undefeated at 2-0-1 on the season. So if you're the Bears, you can't afford to fall to 1-2 on the season. But listening to some Bears fans and some local Bears outlets, they're overlooking the Redskins. They've already counted this one as a win. You know how our fans, all right, Redskin fans, love to overlook teams and circle teams on the schedule as wins. Oh, yeah, we got Buffalo in week fill in the blank. That's a win. Oh, we got the Dolphins in week 6. That's a win. Oh, yeah, we got the Giants in week 4. That's a win. I don't know why the hell, and I've said this for years, because we've been a bad organization and team for years. I said, why do we feel like it's okay for us? The New England Patriots can do that. The New Orleans Saints can do that. All right? The Pittsburgh Steelers, when they were good, they could do that. Certain teams around the league, they have a license to circle games on the calendar and say, that's a win, okay? We're not one of those teams. As a matter of fact, we're the team on most opponents' schedule that they circle as a win, all right? Not the other way around. So, watching the Giants game, and we'll get to that a little bit later on yesterday, I thought to myself, all those damn Redskins fans talking about, hey, we could get to 3-3. And I said, hey, guys, pipe down. Let's get one first. And don't count that Giants game as a win either, because that's a lot of what you guys were doing, talking about 3-3. There's a path to 3-3. Oh, yeah? There's a path to 0-6, too. All right? That includes a loss to the Dolphins if you're not careful. So there's a lot going on right now, but forget about all of that. Tonight is where the Redskins start their march back to respectability in 2019, if it's going to happen. You lose this game, and for all intents and purposes, the competitive portion of the season is dead if you don't win this football game. So if you're looking to have a competitive portion of the schedule into October, possibly into November, it starts with the win tonight at home versus the Bears, who are overlooking the Redskins. They're counting this one as a win. They're already looking forward to week 4's matchup. They're not even talking about week 3 in Chicago. That's how much or how little they think of the Washington Redskins. And I listened to Jay Gruden over the weekend. He understands that this is essentially a code red game. He hasn't come out and said it, but you listen to him talk, and the more and more he talks, the more and more it sounds like a guy that understands how desperate they need to be in this game. He's not stupid. He may not be a great head coach, but he's not stupid. And so I think we're going to get the best version of Redskins football that we have. Now, I don't know if that's good enough to beat the Bears, but it's going to be good enough to make this a competitive game, one that I think the Redskins have a legitimate shot of winning. Got to eliminate mistakes, penalties, and that's something we'll get to here in the next segment. But as I've talked about, I just want to go over the injury report quickly, as we've pretty much had that picture crystallized for us over the weekend with the practice situation, guys. And listening to Jay Gruden, he pretty much told me on Saturday who was and wasn't going to go. So I can tell you this much. Jonathan Allen, barring any setback in pregame warmup, he's going to play. All right. Don't know how many snaps he's going to play, however. Jay sounded like Jonathan Allen was only going to play somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20, maybe 25 on the high side of snaps in this game. Not going to play his normal 45 to 50 defensive snaps. And depending on how many offensive snaps the opposing team has, you can see Allen out there for 95% of those snaps. That's not going to happen tonight. Allen is probably going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, maybe even 40% of the defensive snaps. He will not be on the field for the vast majority of the night, but just having him out there is a good sign, and we're hoping that he's able to get through this game healthy, and then you can continue to try to build off of that and get him a little bit healthier as the weeks progress. You're going to say Fab Moreau. He went full go in practice on Friday and Saturday, so he's going to play in this game. That's a breath of fresh air for the Redskins. Gives them a quality corner opposite of Norman. I know you don't want to hear that because you think Norman is the weak link in the secondary, and that may ultimately be true. But nonetheless, you much rather have a Fab Moreau opposite of Norman than have a DRC who's now injured and no longer on the team. But in any event, Fab Moreau gives me a little bit more confidence out there as a guy that will help the communication in the secondary, give us a little bit more athleticism out there, and a guy that is very flexible and interchangeable where you could put him in the slot if need be and kick Moreland outside and vice versa with those two. And Colvin, a guy that we signed to help us in the nickel, is someone that can give us some snaps. He's a little bit more familiar with the defense, having been here now a full week. But again, you don't want to see him on the field as often, but he will have to help as the Redskins are still somewhat banged up at the corner. Speaking of corner, not going to see Dunny in this game. Jay Gruden said, look, he can push off that leg, but just not enough. He said he could play if you wanted a slow corner out there, but we want a fast Dunny, not a slow Dunny, and so he can't play because he can't fully push off that leg yet. So no Quentin Dunbar in this game. We all heard the reports about Jordan Reed and his potential situation about maybe retirement being around the corner. We all saw that coming. We all said that if he retired, it's probably for the best at this point of his career with all the concussions he's had. It is what it is. We wish Jordan nothing but the best. If he decides to play, we will support him there. If he decides to hang it up, we will support him there as well. I've always said that if Jordan Reed didn't come back, that it wouldn't shock me because at this point, we thought he was going to play in week 2 versus Dallas. He practiced on Wednesday. He practiced on Thursday. And then out of nowhere, he didn't practice on Friday. And that showed me a lot as to where he is in his progress. It's not looking good for Jordan Reed, and I think he's starting to take this thing seriously and actually mulling over the decision whether to retire or to continue to play. I know he wants to play, but at some point you have to look at your long-term health and have to take that into real consideration. I think he's starting to do that, and I think he's starting to lean towards retirement. We'll see what happens with Jordan Reed. Either way, I will not be upset. And I've appreciated watching him play. It's a shame because without the injuries, we're saying the same thing we said about Sean Taylor with Jordan Reed. With Sean Taylor, obviously his senseless murder, but if we didn't have the injuries with Jordan Reed, you're talking about a guy that had the potential to be not only one of the all-time greats as a Redskin, but you're talking about a guy that had the talent to be a potential Hall of Famer. Now, he was so far away and so far removed from even having that discussion because he hasn't been healthy. He hasn't had the seasons that would require you to be in that discussion and in that vein. But he set the Redskins' single-season record for most receptions in a season. He's been a guy that has been a terror to this division, lighting up the Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys and other teams around the league. They respect Jordan Reed, know what he's capable of, but the problem is he's never been able to stay healthy, and this is just the latest in a long laundry list of injuries for Jordan Reed in his career, and this ultimately may be the final straw that breaks the camel's back, and obviously not playing in Week 3 versus the Bears. You look at some of the other injuries. Again, you already know you're not going to get the other defensive lineman, Caleb Brantley. He's out. And so when you look at the Redskins football team as a whole, I think we have enough bullets in the gun to get something done in this football game. I'm anxious to see, more so than anything else, what the defensive scheme looks like, what the defensive pressure package looks like. How do they stop the run on first down? And this is the thing. The Bears, if you don't give them opportunities to run, they would much rather throw it 45 times. Their coach would much rather throw it 40 times with Mitchell Trubisky than run it. So if you take away the run early, he'll quit the run. He'll abandon the run and just go strictly to the pass game, essentially. And I'm anxious to see how the Redskins adapt to the Bears. They do a lot of different things, a lot of formational shifts, a lot of guys playing all over the field, gadget guys that can get the football. This is a complex offense to defend. And if the Redskins aren't on their P's and Q's, Y's and Z's, they could easily got in this game and give up some big plays. We know the communication has not been strong for this Redskins team, not just this season, but in seasons past under Greg Minuski, communication has always been a problem and there has always been communication breakdowns. So if they're not strong in their communication in this game, with all the shifts in the formational changes and guys that are gadget guys that can be on the field that you have to pay attention to, if the Redskins aren't disciplined, if they don't have their eyes in the right place, they can give up some big plays tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what the Redskins do on the defensive side. I think the Redskins, I don't think they're going to have a great game offensively against this Bears defense, but I don't think they're going to vomit all over themselves. I think they will give the Redskins a chance to win. It really, I think, boils down to how well the defense plays. And so I don't think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. You already know how I think this game is going to end. I already gave you a score. So with that being said, let's get to in other news. And I talked about Jay Gruden already and what he spoke about with the injury situation. And he sounds like a guy that's really confident. Jay also spoke about having a little bit more input on what was going on defensively. So I think Jay has made it known that he wants to get to the quarterback. And however that has to happen, it needs to happen, whether that means you pressure with 5 or 6. And I think you kind of heard that from Minuski when he spoke. And I talked about that on the Thursday edition last week of the Redskins Nightly News, that Minuski was a little bit more forthcoming and saying, yeah, if that means we got to pressure a little bit more, then we will. I think that was Jay speaking through him, essentially getting in his ear and saying, look, bro, you're on thin ice at this point. And let me say something that I didn't know, and I don't know if many of you knew this. I haven't had any Redskins fans approach me with this knowledge and this news. And so I was actually taken aback when I figured this thing out, and it makes a lot of sense now. So I was listening to, I want to say it was J.P. Finley. It could have been John Keim. It might have been a combination of the two. But what I was able to gather from listening to them talk over the weekend is that Greg Minuski and Jim Tom Sula are boys. Like, the reason, remember Jim Tom was talking about leaving in the offseason. Remember, he at one point didn't want to come back. He was ready to leave, and the only reason he stayed is because Greg Minuski remained as the defensive coordinator. So I think Minuski is here partly because they couldn't find anybody else to take the job, but also a large part of why he's still here is because of Jim Tom Sula. Here I am the entire time talking about, well, if you fire Greg Minuski, you can just promote, because I don't want to see Rob Ryan as the defensive coordinator. Nobody wants to see that, all right? And that's the problem with firing Minuski, is you got to have somebody replace him. Now, you may take the defensive backs coach and make him the new defensive coordinator, and Ray Horton, that's a possibility, but I want no parts of Rob Ryan as my DC. That being said, my solution was always and has been and will continue to be, hey, just make it Jim Tom Sula. But if you fire Minuski, Tom Sula doesn't want to be here anymore. The biggest part of the reason why he's here, yes, he loves those players. Yes, they have a great relationship. You hear Jonathan Allen talk about Jim Tom all the time and praise him profusely about how he's the best coach he's ever had. Keep in mind, this is a man that has been coached by Nick Saban. And he continuously talks about how Jim Tom Sula is the best coach he's ever had in his entire life. But if they fire Greg Minuski, Tom Sula wants no parts of the defensive coordinator job. They've already said that he's a guy that wants no parts of the weekly interviews that have to be done, the media obligations that come with being a coordinator. He didn't want to do any of that stuff. Tom Sula didn't want any of that stuff when he was in San Francisco. He didn't handle it well. He wants no parts of it. Hell, Greg Minuski wants no parts of that. You can see in the press conferences when he comes up, he wants them to be quick, straight to the point, and he wants to get the hell out of there. He wants no parts of these interviews. And those guys are like two peas in a pod. And so if you get rid of Greg Minuski, you run the risk of potentially losing Jim Tom Sula. So I don't really know if getting rid of Minuski is actually the best thing for this team's mental psyche long term. Now, again, after the season, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. You can clean house, get rid of whoever you want. But in season, you make a change like that, and Jim Tom's like, well, if he's gone, I'm gone. Or if he says, you can fire him, I'm not happy now, and I don't want to be your DC. shit could go sideways. It really, really could. So that's something to also keep in mind as Redskins fans. And it's part of the reason why I think Greg Minuski is still here. There's a dynamic that we didn't consider as fans behind the scenes that I wasn't privy to. I didn't know about this until just this past weekend. So that's something to chew on if you're a Redskins fan. Or some of you are like, I don't give a shit who's friends, who's not friends. Get this man the hell out of here. And I totally get that as well. But let's go around the league. So before we talk about the Giants and Danny Dimes, a.k.a. Daniel Jones, I want to talk about the officiating. And I talked about how excited I was to see the young Hockley not doing or doing a Thursday night game, which meant he wasn't going to get 2 primetime assignments, which warmed my heart because I knew he wasn't going to be doing our game this week because he's horrible. And he was horrible last week versus the Cowboys and his crew. And just, oh, by the way, he did the Falcons game this week. The Falcons had 16 penalties for 128 yards. So just in case you thought he got the memo with the rest of the officials around the league, you're wrong. Him and his crew still up to no good, tearing teams to shreds. Falcons paid dearly for the young Hockley and his crew doing their game. 16 penalties for 128 yards, including an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Keanu O'Neal for throwing his helmet because he tore his his Achilles. Who does that? Who gives a guy who's writhing in pain for taking off his helmet and tossing it aside because he's pissed off because he knows his season is over? Who gives that guy a penalty? Young Hockley and his crew does. That's who. Shameful. Anyway, we don't have to worry about that tonight. And the good news is, all right, that the Redskins are going to be the beneficiaries, potentially, of a phone call and a conference that the head of officiating had with the rest of the staff, telling them, hey, Tom Brady, you know what he says goes, and Tom says he's tired of these penalties, so we got to pipe down. Holding calls were up, dramatically up, over the first 2 weeks of the season. Well, after that meeting, after Tom Brady said what he said, Tom makes shit happen, man, believe it or not. There were a drastic decrease in penalties this weekend. So all the officials except the young Hockley crew got the memo. And I must say, the football was a lot cleaner and a lot easier on the eyes this week as there weren't as many holding penalties. Now, that's the good news. So we may get the trickle-down effect of that. Here's the bad news. We're still the Redskins, and we still seem to pick up penalties that other teams don't. All right? When you go back and you watch the film, it's amazing how teams do the same shit that we do against us, don't get flagged, but we do that and we get flagged. So are we actually going to be able to take advantage of this? We will see. All right. But nonetheless, less penalties called in week 3 than the first 2 weeks by far. Hopefully that trend continues tonight versus in Monday Night Football, Redskins at home versus the Bears. Now, finally, we'll wrap up with a trip around the league, and the trip goes around the NFC East real quick. The Cowboys took care of business versus the Dolphins. They're now 3-0, and no one thought that this was going to be the case, but they have a chance to run away with this division. They got the Saints on the road Sunday Night Football. That's going to be a tough game. They may lose that game. They may win that game, but when you look at the Eagles, let's take a trip to, and I'll say this about the Cowboys and we'll move on. That defense, not as good as it was last year. They can be had. The Dolphins were in that game, and if not for the Dolphins simply being the Dolphins, dropped touchdown, fumble inside the 10-yard line, and another drop touchdown pass. If not for that in the first half, the Cowboys are down heading into the half to the Miami Dolphins. All right, 20-10 that score could have been if the Dolphins had the ability, 17-10. That score could have been if the Dolphins had the ability to not make some of the mistakes that they made. But they're the Dolphins. You expect them to make the mistakes that they did. The Cowboys took full advantage and ran away with the game in the second half, 31-6, to cover that 22-point spread. You go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Never thought in a million years they would lose at home to the Detroit Lions. They're super banged up, but that's no excuse. They had every opportunity. Detroit tried to give them the game, and the Eagles refused to take it. Drop passes, bad penalties, turnovers, mistakes, you name it. The Eagles did it in that game. The Lions escaped with the victory, 27-24. And so the Eagles who should have been 0-3, because now I'm looking at the Eagles. You know, when we lost the game, we justified that by saying that's a good Eagles football team. And I think they're better than what they're showing because of the injuries. No Alshon Jeffrey, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. No Deshaun Jackson, who ate our ass alive. And so you take those guys out of the mix, they're not the same team offensively, which we had to face both of those guys. However, we should have beat the Eagles. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No two ways about it. We should have won that game. The Eagles should be 0-3. Instead, they're 1-2, but there's a little bit of distance between the Cowboys and everybody else in the division. The closest team to the Cowboys are the 1-2 Giants and the 1-2 Eagles, and the Redskins look to add their name to the list of 1-2 teams in the NFC East, hopefully with a win tonight. But the Cowboys are 3-0, and they have a commanding lead in this division early on. We'll see if that continues. Speaking of the Giants, man, wow, what a game that was. The first thing that I said to myself was, if he somehow takes them down the field to win this football game, which he did, and I've already broken this game down, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but I said, we'll never hear the end of it from Giants fans. All the people that said that, you know, everyone was pointing the finger and laughing and all the criticism and naysayers, they're going to have their day. And you would think that this guy just won them the Super Bowl, but he took them down the field. And in the clutch, he came through in a major way. The first quarterback in NFL history to eclipse 300 yards passing, 2 touchdown passes, and also 2 touchdown runs in his debut. And he did all of this on the road against a Tampa team that was coming off of an inspiring win at Carolina on a Thursday night. So not only were they well rested and well prepared, but they jumped out to a 28-10 lead. They harassed Daniel Jones. They sacked him. He fumbled twice. They were all over this guy, and it did not faze him. He seriously has the Eli Manning gene. He looked unfazed and unbothered by the pressure. And when the game was on the line, when they were down 18, he took his team down the field, trimmed that lead down. When they were down by 11, took his team down the field, trimmed the lead down. When they were down by 6, took his team down the field, trimmed the lead down, and took the lead. He was poised, calm, cool, and collected the entire game. And when the Bucs took every option away on 4th down and goal from the 9-yard line, he took off and ran for a touchdown. That's the added dimension he gives them that you didn't have with Eli Manning all these years, is you knew where Eli Manning's address was. You do not know where to find Daniel Jones. When things break down, he's not afraid to use his legs. He's going to be dangerous. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep this up, but I'm going to tell you right now, he's doing everything that everyone said he had the potential to do. Everyone said he's the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft. What has he done? He's come in and been the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft. We said, hey, this is a guy that is extremely accurate when he's got time to throw the football. What was he in the preseason? Extremely accurate. What was he in the game on Sunday? Extremely accurate. And we said, this is a guy that can use his legs. He did it a ton at Duke. What did he do in this game? He used his legs when he had to, including the game-winning touchdown. And we also said, hey, David Cutcliffe, say what you want about him, but he's been a quarterback whisperer with the Mannings, and now we think he's going to be able to do it with Daniel Jones. And it looks thus far as that is the case. We'll see what happens, but man, was Danny Dimes on his game in his first start. And oh, by the way, the Redskins come to town next week, and the Giants, much like we were trying to do, well, not we, a lot of you out there, I wasn't trying to do this. A lot of you were out there saying, we can get to 2-2 if we just beat the Bears. Now the Giants are saying, we can get to 2-2 if we just beat the damn Redskins. And they're at home, and they're going to be favored, and I'm shaking in my damn boots. Now, I will say, one thing makes me a little bit, not a lot, a little bit more at ease. Again, I don't want to look too far ahead. I've got tunnel vision. I'm just really focused on tonight, to be honest with you. But if you're looking forward to the Giants game next week, no Saquon Barkley. That is a breath of fresh air. And I hate to see anybody get hurt. You know, I was upset when he got injured. But the first thing, I'm a competitor, all right? The first thing I said is he's not playing next week against my Redskins. So if we can find a way to win tonight, I don't know if we're going to be able to stop Danny Dimes or not. But we don't have to worry about stopping Saquon Barkley. That should give us a little bit of confidence going. And again, in the NFL, sometimes it's all about the luck of the draw when you play teams. All right, the Cowboys are going to play the Saints without Drew Brees. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily after seeing what they did to Seattle yesterday, but that's a break, you would think, on the schedule. You know, the Falcons got the Eagles without Deshaun Jackson, and essentially both of those guys got hurt relatively early in the game. The Lions benefited. Why? No Deshaun Jackson, no Alshon Jeffrey. It's all about when you play teams sometimes. And we're going to get the Giants without Saquon Barkley. It may benefit us. It may not. It may force Danny Dimes to throw it 43 times, and he may slice and dice our ass up. Or it could hurt them, and they may not have any run game, and he may have to do it by himself, and the Redskins may be able to get after him and force some mistakes. Look, he should have thrown a pick six yesterday. It's not like he was perfect, but he was damn good. And so the Giants get their first win, and that's going to be a fun matchup. And for those of you out there clamoring for Dwayne Haskins because Daniel Jones' success and how the Giants played with him at quarterback, pipe down. There's a stark contrast to how that situation played itself out with Eli Manning giving them absolutely nothing on offense and Case Keenum starting off the season very hot. All right. So pipe down. It's not the same situation, and you're not getting Haskins. I would tell you this, as Redskins fans, I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but I'm going to be real with you. They have not put Colt McCoy on IR for a reason. If Case Keenum struggles, I'm telling you right now, Colt McCoy probably is the next guy to come in the game, not Dwayne Haskins. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. In any event, let's get to some of your comments before we get out of here and see what you guys have to say, if there are any comments leading into this game. And remember, I want to remind you guys, after this game has met its conclusion tonight, you know where to find me. Win, lose, or draw, I will be here breaking this thing down, and we will talk Redskins football. I will open up the phone lines. So, and we're going to have to keep the length of the calls to a minimum for some of you out there that like to be long-winded. We can't do that tonight because I know a lot of you are going to want to call in, especially if the Redskins look horrible and the defense gets shredded. I know there will be a lot of frustration, a lot of you who will want to voice your opinion. The phone lines will be open tonight, and so definitely going to have to keep the calls to a minimum, but definitely want to hear you guys' opinion. Win or lose tonight, I definitely want to hear from you guys out there. In any event, let's get through the comment section very, very quickly to see if there's anything out here. Let's see. I really don't see anything here. Robert Gamble says, should the Redskins go for Dwayne Allen if Jordan Reed retires? I don't see why not, but he's not really going to make that big of a difference. Why not continue to develop some of the younger guys you have? And I think as you look at this season progress, I think you're going to have to look at cornerback potentially as a first-round need for the Redskins next year. I think you're going to have to look at tight end as another one of those positions that you need to draft relatively early, and also left tackle. So that's what happens as you go through the season. You start to develop new needs. Like corner wasn't necessarily at the top of the list, but after looking at Norman's play and Dunny's not able to stay healthy year after year, you got to start looking at cornerback as a position of need. And that's why I know a lot of Redskins fans wanted Jalen Ramsey. The Redskins aren't going to give up what it's going to take to get him, but at the end of the day, the Redskins do need to do something at cornerback. And if the Redskins turn out to be horrible this year and they end up with the second or the third pick in the draft, a guy like Chase Young out of Ohio State, I'm just saying, we're going to need more pass rush. And Ryan Kerrigan isn't getting any younger. His contract is going to be up here shortly. Do you want to re-sign Ryan Kerrigan? I don't know. Maybe not. I know a lot of Redskins fans are upset about what Preston Smith is doing. Why don't you guys try being happy for Preston Smith? The Redskins didn't want him back. All right? Don't try to paint this scenario like you loved. A lot of you wanted Preston Smith the hell out of here. And I'm happy for Preston Smith. I'm rooting for P. Boogie. I always thought he was underrated and never got the credit he deserved from Redskins fans. And now he's tearing shit up for the Green Bay Packers. Had a 3-sack day yesterday. Forced a fumble that changed the tenor of that game and helped the Packers get a 27-16 victory. When that game was tied at 10, he got the sack, strip force fumble that the Packers recovered inside the Broncos' 10-yard line that led to the Packers taking the lead for good in that football game. He's been on his grizzy out there in Green Bay, and I couldn't be more happy for him. We didn't know how to cultivate that talent, and we didn't appreciate what he brought to the table. The guy never got hurt. The guy never complained. We asked him to gain weight, then we asked him to lose weight, then we asked him to stand up, then we asked him to put his hand in the dirt. He never once complained, and I thought he was a damn good football player, and he's balling for the Green Bay Packers, and I'm happy for him. So we could use some more edge rushing, as you can see. We'll see what happens. I don't know if Casanova McKenzie's playing or not. I would guess that he is going to give it a go, but if he doesn't, I think the Redskins will have Noah Spence up. I don't think both of those guys will be up. If Casanova McKenzie can't go, then you'll probably see Noah Spence active tonight. If Casanova McKenzie can't go, then you will probably see Noah Spence up. I myself would like to see both of those guys up. Why? Because what if Casanova McKenzie decides he can go, and then early in the first quarter, he tweaks something, and he can't go the rest of the game? Now you're down to just 3 pass rushers. Don't put yourself in that position. Have the extra guy up, knowing that Casanova McKenzie hasn't been right since the preseason. Really, he's been a little banged up, had the concussion, now has the hip injury. You probably need to either give him a week to get himself together, or you probably need to just have the extra guy up if you're going to go with McKenzie. But again, the Redskins aren't in a position to be having a bunch of dudes up, so we will see what happens. Anyway, Jew24 says, does Montez Sweat get a sack tonight? It'd be nice. It'd be nice to see him get to the quarterback. I've heard Jay talk about minimizing what this guy has to do. He's doing a lot of thinking right now on the field, and that's natural for a young player to come into the league and be asked to do multiple things. Remember, this was a guy strictly hand in the dirt at Mississippi State. Now he's asked to stand up in the defense, asked to stay at home on the backside of run plays and things of that nature. A little bit more involved. And again, he's seeing some high quality tackle play, something he didn't see in the SEC very often. So this is a guy that is very raw, as I mentioned when he came out, and I think he'll be just fine. What I would like to see him used as is a Jadeveon Clowney type of player. Stand him up, move him around, give him a chance to rush, because he's got speed. So give him a chance to rush from the inside and the A gap and move him around to the B gap. Have him walking around like the Texans used to do with Jadeveon Clowney. He's that type of athlete. I don't think he's a guy you just go after the quarterback. I think he's a guy you move around as a chess piece. Make him dangerous wherever he is. You can see he was stout against the run. He was exceptional versus the run, I thought, against the Cowboys last week. Made some really good plays in the run game. He's been really stout against the run and stout at the point of attack. I've been impressed in that regard. Now I want to see him get to the quarterback. Move him around. Give him overload one side of the defense or offense and make them have to pick up guys and not have enough to pick up Montez. We got to get him free. He's a fast guy. He closes ground quickly, eats up a ton of space. Well, get him unblocked. These are the things you got to think about as a defensive coordinator. All right? In any event, that's going to do it for your man, Louis T. We will be live directly after the game. You know where to find me. Come here. We'll break it all down, and we'll discuss every aspect of the game, and then we'll open up the phone lines, and the floor will be yours. So, again, I thank you guys for joining me here on the Redskins Nightly News. A special live edition. We'll be here again tomorrow to kind of take a look at the game and clean up any messes left from the game. Any leftovers, we'll clean those up, and then we'll start to turn around. Quick turnaround as the Redskins play on Monday night, and they have to turn around and play on Sunday. So a quick turnaround for the Skins. So we'll clean up this game quickly on Tuesday and then turn our attention to the next opponent, the Giants, on Wednesday. So thank you guys for joining me. Remember, we've got skin in the game. Why? Because we're Skins fans for life. I'll see you guys at the conclusion of Bears at Redskins. Hopefully, we're talking about a Redskins win, and this season isn't going to come crashing down, and we'll see what happens. In any event, I'll see you guys at the end of the game. Enjoy. You know I will. Have a good one.